Hello everyone, good evening to all of you. Hope you are all doing good. Hope your studies are going well, and I am sure your exams are going on. Hope you are all doing well in your examination. And now we continue the lecture series on A04 Common Course in English. This is in fact the lecture series, a continuation of the lecture series on readings on Kerala. Today we are just looking at one of the model question papers I have prepared, and as we look at the question paper, we will understand how we should prepare for the exam. I'm sure you will definitely have full score if you answer all the questions in very good English with all the points, and the questions, rather the model question paper I have prepared. Okay, I pray that you have questions from the same question paper. Let us see when maybe when you are writing the examination, you can just compare the question paper I have prepared and the questions you really have in your examination. Anyway, I want you to learn or know the very pattern of the question, and remember, this paper A04 readings on Kerala is of 80 marks and 20 marks internal, and the pattern of the question paper is we have three sections: section A, section B, and section C. In section A you have 15 questions, and each question carry 2 marks, and there is a ceiling of 25 marks. That means you can answer all the 15, and it doesn't mean that you are going to get 30 for answering 15, and it's very difficult to, of course, get full 2 marks for all the 15. Maybe most of you who are very good in English and who know all the answers right, of course, will get maybe 25. Let's hope so. Now I would request you, I would insist on you answering all the 15 so that you get maximum, that is 25. And in section B, again you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 questions, right? 8 questions you have to answer. I would ask you to answer all the 8, and each question carry 5. So 8 into 5 should be 40, but the ceiling is at 35. So please don't stop answering all the questions at 7. Please answer all 8, so that it's very difficult to get 5 out of 5. Even to get 4 out of 5 is difficult. So I would request, maybe the most of the 50 to 60% of the students may get 3 marks, 3.5. Right, good students, exceptionally good in English, no grammar mistakes, all the points straight to the point, they will get 4.5. It's very difficult to get 5. So I would request each of you to write all the 8 questions in section B. And section C, you have to answer any 2 questions, and each question each has 10 marks, right? So 10 plus 10, 20, right? So it is 25 in section A, 35 in section B, and 20 in section C. Let's look at the questions. As we discuss the questions, I'll be giving you the answers, and the first question is, why do section A, answer the following questions, each carry 2 marks. Why do the 3 people quarrel as the boat arrives? This question is from the poem Pictures Drawn on Water by K. Sachidanandan, and the answer is, in K. Sachidanandan's poem Pictures Drawn on Water, which is written in the wake of the great flood in Kerala in 2018, 3 people quarrel as the boat arrives, not to get into the boat, but for the other to climb in. This is the answer. And we know that the three people are a mother, a brother, and a daughter who is pregnant. So each of them is just compelling the other to get into the boat. That is the selflessness, the love of the members of the family. Similar love all the people in Kerala had during those days of great flood. Okay, the answer. Why do the three people quarrel as the boat arrives? Answer is, they quarrel as the boat arrives, not to get into the boat, but for the other to climb in, compelling the other to climb into the boat. And mention the name of the poem and the poet. That is, the answer would go this way. In K. Sachidanandan's poem Pictures Drawn on Water, which is written in the wake of the great flood in Kerala in 2018, three people quarrel as the boat arrives, not to get into the boat, but for the other to climb in. Second question, your love is my revenge. Who said this? Priya. Answer. Priya, the heroine of the story Agni, said this to Ravi, one of the rapists. Okay, so this is the answer. Your love is my revenge. The who said this? Priya, the heroine of the story Agni, said this to Ravi, one of the rapists, in the story Agni by Sitara S. The third question, who recites Baudelaire in Malayalam? Answer, the poet's father recites Baudelaire. The poem is Malayalam Ghazal by Jeet Thail. The poet's father recites Baudelaire. Now the fourth question, how is Nirmalyam significant today? Nirmalyam is the 1973 film directed by M.T. Vasudevan Nair. And the answer, how is Nirmalyam significant today? M.T. Vasudevan Nair's 1973 film Nirmalyam delineates the futility of rituals and religious beliefs and practices. This film led to the secularization and modernization of Indian polity. Now we look at the fifth question. Who sits huddled up tossing the hair? This is from Rain at Night by Sugata Kumari. Who sits huddled up tossing the hair? Rain at night, Ratri Mara. Rain at night sits huddled up and tossing her long hair like a young mad woman. Now the sixth question. What is the myth that Thagari adapted for his novel Chemin? What is the myth that Thagari adapted for his novel Chemin? And this question is from the essay Myth and Literature by M.T. Vasudevan Nair. The answer, Thagari Sivashankara Pillai, the famous Malayalam novelist, adapted the myth of the sea as Kadalamma in his novel Chemin. The sea is seen as a maternal figure who looks after the men who are out in the sea fishing, and she expects the women folk to live a taintless life while their men are toiling in the sea. This is the answer. Now the next question. What served as a pillow for Kochutomi? This is from Vaikam Muhammad Bashir's story, Christian Heritage. The answer, the question, what served as a pillow for Kochutomi? Christian Heritage in India, authored by Sri John Ochenturuth, served as a pillow for Kochutomi. ഈ കഥയ്ക്കകത്ത് വൈക്കം മുഹമ്മദ് ബഷീർ എന്ന കഥാകാരനെ, എഴുത്തുകാരനെ കാണുവാനായിട്ട് തിരുവിതാംകൂറിൽ നിന്നും കോട്ടയത്തു നിന്നും ഒരു വായനക്കാരൻ, കൊച്ചു തൊമ്മി എന്ന് പറയുന്ന കർഷകനായ വായനക്കാരൻ വരുന്നുണ്ട്. അപ്പോൾ അദ്ദേഹത്തിന് രാത്രി അവിടെ ഉറങ്ങുവാനായി വൈക്കം മുഹമ്മദ് ബഷീറിൻ്റെ ഭാര്യ ഒരു തലയണ കൊടുക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. അത് തലയണയല്ല കൊടുത്തത്, ഒരു പുസ്തകമാണ് കൊടുത്തത്. അപ്പോൾ ഇവിടെ വാട്ട് ഈസ് ദാറ്റ് പില്ലോ? ആൻഡ് ദി പില്ലോ ഈസ് the book titled Christian Heritage in India, and it's authored by Sri John Ochanturuth. Now we go to the next question, 8th one. Who is the daughter of humanity in the story of the same title? ലളിതാംബിക അന്തർജനത്തിൻ്റെ ഡോട്ടർ ഓഫ് ഹ്യൂമാനിറ്റി എന്ന കഥയിലെ മനുഷ്യപുത്രി, ഡോട്ടർ ഓഫ് ഹ്യൂമാനിറ്റി ആരാണ്? കുഞ്ഞാത്തോൾ അമ്മ, എ റെപ്രസെൻറ്റേറ്റീവ് ക്യാരക്ടർ ഫ്രോം ദ നമ്പൂതിരി ഹൗസ് ഹോൾഡ്സ് in the 1950s and 1960s is the daughter of humanity. ഭൂപരിഷ്കരണ നിയമങ്ങൾ, ലാൻഡ് റിഫോം ആക്ട്സ് വന്നതിനു ശേഷം നമ്പൂതിരി കുടുംബങ്ങളുടെ സമ്പത്ത് ഇല്ലാതാകുകയും അതിനു മുമ്പ് അവർ പാവപ്പെട്ടവർക്കും ദരിദ്രരായവർക്കും എല്ലാം ധാരാളം ഭക്ഷണവും പണവും എല്ലാം വളരെ അധികം ദാനം ചെയ്യുമായിരുന്നു. അങ്ങനെ ദാനം ചെയ്ത് പാവപ്പെട്ടവരെ വളർത്തി കൊണ്ടുവന്ന ധാരാളം നമ്പൂതിരി കുടുംബങ്ങളുണ്ടായിരുന്നു. അത്തരമൊരു നമ്പൂതിരി കുടുംബത്തിലെ ഒരു അമ്മ, ഒരു സ്ത്രീ ഈ ഭൂപരിഷ്കരണ നിയമങ്ങൾക്ക് ശേഷം അനുഭവിക്കേണ്ടി വരുന്ന കടുത്ത ദാരിദ്ര്യത്തെക്കുറിച്ചും അത് കാണിക്കുന്ന ഒരു കഥയാണ് നമ്മളുടെ ലളിതാംബിക അന്തർജനത്തിൻ്റെ മനുഷ്യപുത്രി എന്നുള്ള കഥ. അപ്പോൾ അതിനകത്ത് ഈ മനുഷ്യപുത്രി ആരാണെന്നാണ് ചോദ്യം. ദി ആൻസർ ഈസ് Kunyathol Amma, a representative character from the Nambudiri households in the 1950s and 1960s, is the daughter of humanity. Now the 9th question, what makes the narrator proud as he stands on the newly built bridge? Question is based on the poem Kuttipuram Bridge by the poet Edasheri Govindan Nair, and the question is, what makes the narrator proud as he stands on the newly built bridge? പുതുതായി പണിത കുറ്റിപ്പുറം പാലത്തിൻ്റെ മുകളിൽ നിൽക്കുമ്പോൾ എന്തുകൊണ്ടാണ് കവിക്ക് വളരെയധികം അഭിമാനം തോന്നുന്നത്? ദി നറേറ്റർ എടശ്ശേരി ഗോവിന്ദൻ നായർ ഈസ് പ്രൗഡ് ദാറ്റ് the Kuttipuram Bridge has been constructed by spending 23 lakhs. He is proud about the scientific and material achievement of man, which contributes tremendously to the progress of transport and communication. 23 ലക്ഷം രൂപ ചെലവഴിച്ച് പുതുതായി പണിത കുറ്റിപ്പുറം പാലം കേരളത്തിലെ വടക്കൻ കേരളത്തെയും തെക്കൻ കേരളത്തെയും തമ്മിൽ ബന്ധിപ്പിക്കുന്ന ഒരു എളുപ്പത്തിലുള്ള ഒരു ഗതാഗത മാർഗം തുറന്നു കൊടുക്കുകയാണ്. അത് സാധ്യമായത് ശാസ്ത്രത്തിൻ്റെയും സാങ്കേതിക വിദ്യയുടെയും അതുപോലെ തന്നെ ബൗദ്ധികമായിട്ടുള്ള നേട്ടങ്ങളുടെയും ഒരിതാണ്. അതുകൊണ്ട് ഈ പുതിയ പാലത്തിൽ നിൽക്കുമ്പോൾ അദ്ദേഹത്തിന് ഈ ഗതാഗത വാർത്താവിനിമയ രംഗത്തെ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഈ ഒരു പാലത്തിലൂടെ ഇനിയും കേരളത്തിന് വരാൻ പോകുന്ന പുരോഗതിയെക്കുറിച്ച് ചിന്തിക്കുമ്പോൾ വലിയ ഒരു അഭിമാനം തോന്നുകയാണ്. Alright, now the next question is the 10th question. Who was the first editor of Swadeshabhimani? The answer is K. Ramakrishna Pillai, or Swadeshabhimani Ramakrishna Pillai was the first editor of Swadeshabhimani. And now we move on to the 11th question. What strikes the poet as pitiable? Okay, this is from the poem by Poigayil Appachan. So we will answer this question. Poigayil Appachan feels pity about the fact that there was no one in the old days on the earth to write the history of the Dalit people, and Poigayil Appachan feels very sad for the very pathetic condition that nothing is written about the Dalit people. There isn't anyone to write about the pathetic, marginalized condition of the very miserable condition of the Dalit people, and it is from no, not a single letter is seen by Poigayil Appachan. Now the next question is, who all influenced the formation of SJPS, Sadhu Jana Paripalana Sangam? The answer is both Sadananda Swami and Sri Narayana Guru influence Ayyankali to form the Sadhu Jana Paripalana Sangham in 1907. Now we have the 13th question. What were the circumstances that led to the writing of Indulekha? Indulekha എന്ന മലയാളത്തിലെ ഏറ്റവും ആദ്യത്തെ ഒരു എല്ലാവിധ സവിശേഷതകളുമുള്ള നോവൽ എഴുതാനുള്ള സാഹചര്യം എന്താണ്? What were the circumstances that led to the writing of Indulekha? O. Chandu Menon began to translate English novels at the behest of his wife, who enjoyed reading English novels. Later he understood that the translations would be inscrutable and unrelatable to the Malayali readers. Hence he began to write in English the first finest novel in Malayalam, Indulekha. ഓക്കെ, അപ്പോൾ എല്ലാവർക്കും അറിയാം. എങ്കിലും ഞാൻ മലയാളത്തിൽ ഒന്ന് പറയുകയാണ്. ചന്തു മേനോൻ ആദ്യം ഇംഗ്ലീഷ് നോവലുകൾ മലയാളത്തിലേക്ക് ട്രാൻസ്ലേറ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നതിനായിട്ട് ശ്രമിക്കുകയുണ്ടായി. പക്ഷേ അദ്ദേഹത്തിന് മനസ്സിലായി അങ്ങനെയുള്ള ട്രാൻസ്ലേഷൻസ് ഒരിക്കലും മലയാളികളായിട്ടുള്ള വായനക്കാർക്ക് വേണ്ടൊരു രീതിയിൽ പൂർണ്ണമായിട്ട് മനസ്സിലാക്കാനായിട്ട് കഴിയുകയില്ല എന്ന് മനസ്സിലാക്കുകയാണ്. അങ്ങനെ മനസ്സിലാക്കിയ അദ്ദേഹം പിന്നെ മലയാളികളെക്കുറിച്ച് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ കേരളത്തിലുള്ള ജനങ്ങളെക്കുറിച്ചുള്ള നോവലുകൾ ഇംഗ്ലീഷിൽ എഴുതുവാനായിട്ട് ആരംഭിക്കുകയാണ്. അപ്പോൾ ഇതിനെല്ലാം കാരണം അദ്ദേഹത്തിൻ്റെ ഭാര്യയാണ്. അദ്ദേഹത്തിൻ്റെ ഭാര്യയ്ക്ക് ഇംഗ്ലീഷ് നോവലുകൾ വായിക്കുന്നത് ഒത്തിരി ഇഷ്ടമായിരുന്നു. അപ്പോൾ മലയാളം നോവലുകൾ ഇംഗ്ലീഷിലേക്കും ഒക്കെ ട്രാൻസ്ലേറ്റ് ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ ഒരു പക്ഷേ അത് പരാജയപ്പെട്ടാലോ എന്നുള്ളൊരു ഭയം അദ്ദേഹത്തിന് ഉണ്ടാവുകയും അപ്പോൾ അദ്ദേഹം ഒറിജിനലായിട്ട് ഇംഗ്ലീഷ് നോവൽ എഴുതാനായിട്ട് ആരംഭിക്കുകയാണ്. അങ്ങനെ അദ്ദേഹം എഴുതിയ ഒരു നോവലാണ് നമ്മൾ വായിക്കുന്ന ഇന്ദുലേഖ എന്നുള്ള നോവൽ. Now the next question is, what is the meter of the poem Atmobadesha Shadagam? This poem Atmobadesha Shadagam is written originally in Mrigendra Mugam. മൃഗേന്ദ്ര മുഖം എന്നുള്ള ഒരു വൃത്തത്തിലാണ് ആത്മോപദേശ ശതകം എന്നുള്ള ശ്രീനാരായണ ഗുരുവിൻ്റെ പദ്യം എഴുതിയിരിക്കുന്നത്. The meter is മൃഗേന്ദ്ര മുഖം. Now the 15th question, what is the refuge of Pandavas? This is taken from Ghoshayatra. And the answer, the refuge of the Pandavas is the feet of the benevolent foe of Inferno. The benevolent foe of Inferno. The refuge of the Pandavas is the feet of the benevolent foe of Inferno. Inferno എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ഇൻഫെർണോ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ നരകമാണ്. അപ്പോൾ നരകത്തിൻ്റെ ശത്രു ആരാണ്? ദൈവം. സോ ദ റിഫ്യൂജ് ഓഫ് ദ പാണ്ഡവാസ് ഈസ് ദി ഫീറ്റ് ഓഫ് ഗോഡ്. ദൈവത്തിൻ്റെ പാദമാണ്, ദൈവമാണ്, സ്വർഗമാണ് പാണ്ഡവന്മാരുടെ അഭയം. ദൈവമാണ് അവരെ വനവാസ കാലഘട്ടത്തിൽ സംരക്ഷിക്കുന്നത്. സോ ദ റിഫ്യൂജ് ഓഫ് ദി പാണ്ഡവാസ് ഈസ് ദ ഫീറ്റ് ഓഫ് ദ ബെനവലൻറ്റ് ഫോ ഓഫ് ഇൻഫോർണോ, ദാറ്റ് ഈസ് ഗോഡ്. ഓക്കെ, സോ നമ്മളിപ്പോൾ സെക്ഷൻ എ കംപ്ലീറ്റ് ചെയ്തിരിക്കുകയാണ്. അപ്പോൾ ഞാൻ വീണ്ടും ആവർത്തിക്കുകയാണ്, നിങ്ങൾ പരീക്ഷ എഴുതുമ്പോൾ നിർബന്ധമായിട്ടും സെക്ഷൻ എയിലെയും സെക്ഷൻ ബിയിലെയും എല്ലാ ചോദ്യത്തിൻ്റെയും ഉത്തരം എഴുതണം. സെക്ഷൻ എയിലെ 15 എഴുതണം. 15 കറക്റ്റായിട്ട് എഴുതിയിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് 25 മാർക്ക് ഫുള്ള് കിട്ടും. അത് നിങ്ങൾ വിചാരിക്കും ഒരു പക്ഷേ 25 മാർക്ക് മതിയല്ലോ എന്ന് വിചാരിച്ച് 13 എഴുതി അല്ലെങ്കിൽ 12 എഴുതി നിർത്തിക്കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ഓക്കെ നമുക്ക് ഫുൾ കിട്ടാനായിട്ട് സാധ്യത കുറഞ്ഞാലോ. അതുകൊണ്ട് നിങ്ങൾ എന്ത് ചെയ്യണം? സമയമുണ്ട്, സമയം മാനേജ് ചെയ്യുക. 2.5 മണിക്കൂറുണ്ട്, 2.5 മണിക്കൂറിൽ 2 മണിക്കൂർ കൊണ്ട് തീർക്കാനായിട്ട് നോക്കുക. വൃത്തിയായിട്ട് എഴുതുക. ഓരോ സെക്ഷൻ എ എന്ന് തന്നെ ടൈറ്റിൽ കൊടുത്തിട്ട് 1, 2, 3 അങ്ങനെ കൃത്യമായി ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ നമ്പർ ഇട്ട് മാർജിനിൽ ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ നമ്പർ ഇട്ടിട്ട് വളരെ വൃത്തിയായിട്ട് എഴുതുക. 15 എഴുതുക. അതിനുശേഷം നൗ വി മൂവ് ഫോർവേഡ് ടു ദി പാരഗ്രാഫ് ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ്. ആൻഡ് ഈ ഷോർട്ട് ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ സെക്ഷൻ എയിലെ ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ നിങ്ങൾ തീർച്ചയായിട്ടും ഓർക്കുക. ഒരു 2 സെൻറ്റൻസിന് അപ്പുറം എഴുതണ്ട. കൂടിപ്പോയാൽ 3 സെൻറ്റൻസ്, 3-4 വരികൾക്കപ്പുറം ഒരിക്കലും എഴുതി പോകരുത്. കാരണം അങ്ങനെ എഴുതി കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് സമയം കിട്ടിയല്ല. So the questions, 15 questions in section A, please answer in 1 or 2 sentence or 2 or 3, not more than 3. Okay, വളരെ ലഘുവായിട്ട് അതിലേക്ക് എഴുതുക. ഞാൻ പിന്നെ നിങ്ങൾക്കിത് ഒന്ന് വിശദീകരിക്കാനായിട്ട് ഇത്രയും കൂടുതൽ പറയുന്നത്, പക്ഷേ അങ്ങനെ എഴുതരുത്, കൃത്യമായിട്ട് ആ പോയിന്റിലേക്ക് മാത്രം എഴുതുക. Alright, now we move on to section B. Section B is paragraph question. Remember, a paragraph is just 65 to 75 or 80 words. That is, maybe you have the answer sheet there. So maximum 1 page of the answer sheet. Even 10, 12 or 13 lines would be enough. 60 to, in a line you have 4 or 5 words, right? So you can have maybe 10, 12 lines. 12 lines you have 60, 65, right? 12, 13 lines, that could be the length of paragraph question. And now paragraph question, you should mention the very name of the poem, name of the story, name of the essay, and mention the name of the author. Okay, who wrote which poem, okay, and what is the significance. That kind of an introduction you can have for each and every paragraph question. Okay, so the very question here is number 16, question number 16. Describe the context of the poem Ghosha-yatra. The context of the poem Ghosha-yatra. So, ഈ ഘോഷയാത്ര എന്നുള്ള തുള്ളൽ കവിത കുഞ്ചൻ നമ്പ്യാർ എഴുതിയിരിക്കുന്നത് ഏതൊരു സാഹചര്യത്തിൽ നിന്നാണ് ചോദിച്ചിരിക്കുന്നത്. So, you can just be very specific there. Just mention that Kunchan Nambiar is one of the triumvirate poets of Malayalam, and he has, of course, contributed incredibly to the enrichment of Malayalam poetry and Malayalam language. He was a great satirist, performer, and the inventor of Tullal, an indigenous performance art form of Kerala. And afterwards you can come to the very poem Ghosha-yatra. Ghosha-yatra takes an event from Vanaparvam of the epic Mahabharata. Pandavas are sent into an exile of 13 years and an additional year to be spent in disguise as per a bet in a gamble which they lost to the Kauravas. Curious to know about the whereabouts of their life in exile, the Kaurava king Duryodhana sends a person to gather information. When the messenger arrives with the news of Pandavas, Kauravas are disconcerted by the fact that Pandavas are really having a good time in the forest. Duryodhana plans to bring Pandavas down a little by showcasing Kauravas' wealth and pomp before them, and thus unsettle their calm and peaceful lives. Ghosha in the title refers to pastures where cattle herds live together. Cattle and cattle herds live together. There were many Ghoshas in the precincts of Dvaidavanam, the forest where Pandavas spent their time in exile. Kauravas set out on the pretext of visiting these pastures. The poem doesn't simply narrate this chain of events from the epic. Instead, the poet superimposes the cultural and social scenario of the 18th century Kerala and satirizes both. Duryodhana is cast, right? So similar, you have all that there in your textbook, and I'm not just describing, just mentioning all that, right? So please see that you include all these details in your paragraph question. And now we move on to the next question, 17th question. Rituals of the tribes of Kerala. We have the very essay by our professor S. Achyuta Warrior, and you can just write about the significance of the essay, or rather the significance of the author. You can say that Professor S. Achyuta Warrior is one of the greatest historians and teachers of Kerala, and he has written Kerala Samskaram, and this book Kerala Samskaram is an authentic text on the cultural history of Kerala. And in this text, he writes about the very life and the very the different castes, the different races, different languages, and everything about the people of Kerala. And this essay, Tribals of Kerala, is about the very history of the tribal people, tribes in Kerala. And you can thereafter write about the rituals of the tribes of Kerala. So the tribes of Kerala worshipped Kali, hill gods, and Muthappan besides natural forces. Muthappan is the representative of the ancestors of the community. One can see the cult of worshipping the dead in almost all communities. Kali worship is an essential part of Gotra culture. Of the enraged and calm versions of the goddess, tribals used to worship the enraged one in different manifestations like Kali, Rakta Kali, Mahakali, Chamundi, and Rakta Chamundi. They believe that the anger of the Amman or Kali leads to flood, drought, and epidemic. The goddess is made happy with milk, blood, and alcohol. However, the calm version of Kali is considered as the goddess of fruitfulness, blessings, and progeny. Likewise, you have all the details there in the text in page number 24. Remember all this and write down. Now we come to the next question. Illustrate Gamma's meeting with the Zamorin of Calicut. This is, of course, a very important question, and the answer to the question 18 is you have to mention the fact that the Malabar Manual of William Logan was in fact a collection of information and assumptions William Logan gathered from his travels and studies in Kerala. And Malabar Manual is about the geography, mountains, rivers, climate, natural phenomena, people, flora and fauna, the economy, the ethnography, the caste, religion, language and literature and education of people. And we can say that the very essay that is prescribed for us mention about the arrival of Portuguese navigator Vasco da Gama and his fleet, and thereafter you can mention that when Portuguese people arrived at of course Kapad or Kozhikode, there was great there were already some people, right? Rather, you can say that the arrival of the Portuguese expedition aroused greatest jealousy in the Mohammedans or Moors from Persia. They had a monopoly on the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf trade with Europe, and they began to intrigue with the authorities for the destruction of the Portuguese expedition. And still Vasco da Gama wanted to meet the Zamorin. He was bent on making friendship with the Zamorin, and he wanted, of course, to start trade relationship with the king of Calicut, Zamorin. And after many attempts, he got an opportunity to, of course, visit Zamorin in his palace. And thereafter you can just mention how he comes to the palace of Zamorin, and you can even just mention how Zamorin is described in William Logan's essay. And after at the end you can conclude by mentioning the fact that at last the Portuguese people just they were allowed to erect a factory on the shore for trading purposes. Okay, so all this will form the very content of the answer. Gama's meeting with the Zamorin of Calicut. You can describe how well dressed Gama was, and how many of Gama's team goes to the Zamorin's court. And you can also see that they are exchanging hostages as a safety method. All right. Now the next question: attempt a character sketch of Madhavan. Right. This is again a very important question. You can say that the very as an introduction, you can mention the significance of Chandu Menon and Indulega. Say that Indulega of Chandu Menon is the first finest novel in Malayalam, and mention that this novel is about the young woman, the titular heroine, Indulega. Indulega is of course skilled in the English language. She is educated, and her lover is Madhavan. Madhavan is also English educated, is handsome, physically very fit, and he wants all the youngsters to just get educated, and he questions the very partial and partial behavior of the Karanavar, and just write all these details, and also mention that Madhavan is of course in love with the beautiful lady, young woman, that is of course Indulega. And you can also say that now that Madhavan is having a very good personality, he makes relationship with all the even the English people, right? All that you can, and of course you can come to the text and mention his efforts to, of course, educate Shin and his cousin. Okay, and of course he is maybe very careful about the Karnavar being just, and he cannot just bear the inequality and the discrimination that exists in the very community, and he is questioning the very discrimination, inequality, injustice, and the one-sided partial behavior of the elders in their community. Now we come to the next question. 20th question: describe the circumstances that led to the formation of Sadhu Jana Paripalana Sangam, SJPS. So mention the significance of Ayyankali, and say that Ayyankali was a very important personality in the Kerala Renaissance, and say that Ayyankali was born in a marginalized caste family, and he witnessed the suffering of the Dalit people, and he didn't want the Dalit people to be subjugated, exploited, and oppressed by the upper class and the upper middle class people. And having understood the misery of the Dalit people, and having understood, or rather he knew that the Dalit people were denied education. He knew that Ayyankali knew that the Dalit people could just improve, or could have a better life only when they have an entry into the public sphere. But entry into the public sphere was possible only for English educated, English knowing people, right? And those days the upper caste and the intermediary caste groups, because they wanted to control power, rather they knew that these people, the upper class people, knew that education was a powerful resource, and they didn't want the Dalit people to get educated. They just wanted to control, or rather they wanted to, of course, hold their power, and they denied education to the Dalit people, and Ayyankali just fought against the brutal deeds of the partial discriminatory attitude of the upper caste and the intermediate caste, and he just protested against the injustice in the society in which, of course, the Dalit people were oppressed. Mentioned the Villuvandi Yatra of Ayyankali, so also mentioned his enrollment of Dalit student called Panchami, and later, of course, he just founded the Sadhu Jana Paripalana Sangham in 1907 to give education to the Dalit people, to of course get more, to of course help them enter the public sphere, so also to let them have their human rights. Okay, and you can also mention that Ayyankali was influenced by Sadananda Swami and Sri Narayana Guru, and he was never interested in religious propagation. He was interested in, of course, the material upliftment. He was, or rather, the socio-cultural, economic development of the Dalit rather than the spiritual upliftment. This is very important. Mention that Ayyankali always wanted the socio-cultural, economic development of the Dalit people, and for that purpose he founded the Sadhu Jana Paripalana Sangham in 1907. Now we come to the next question, that is, why is Wakam Maulavi called a rebel? So you can just mention the fact that Wakam Maulavi was a social and religious reformer. He wanted his community, especially the Muslim people, to get educated, and he promoted modern education, scientific thinking, and he rejected the authority of religion. He rejected maybe wrong practices in an orthodox religion, and he rejected the authority of the religious leaders called ulama. He wanted women in the community to get educated, and of course thereafter you can mention his contribution to journalism, his how much he struggled to just begin the very first newspaper in Kerala, say the Swadesha Bhimani newspaper, and you can also mention the very fact that he was not given proper significance, right? Maybe Sabin Iqbal, the author, rather the grandson of Wakam Maulavi, feels sad about the fact that the very person behind the establishment of the newspaper is not given proper significance, but the editor is given more significance. So just mention all that and say that because of his contribution to social and religious reformation, he is known as a rebel for, of course, questioning and challenging the wrong practices in the community. Now we come to the next question. Govindan Kudi is a sinner. What made him think like this? So just write about the story writer Lalitambiga Antajanam, and mention that the story Daughter of Humanity is about the woman or the women in Nambudiri households. As a result of, we have the land reforms of 1959. Now that the Land Reform Act has been just implemented, the tenants, the tenant farmers, they began to, of course, possess land, and the Nambudiri, rather the rich people, the landlords, they lost their control over the tenant farmers, and their income began to dwindle. And as a result of the land reforms, the condition of the Nambudiri families, the Nambudiri women, became very, very bad. And a representative character of the Nambudiri households, especially representative woman character from the Nambudiri households, is our Kunyathol Amma. Kunyathol Amma was, of course, very kind, generous, and helpful. Govindan Kuti lost his father, he lost his mother, and it was Kunyathol Amma who looked after Govindan Kuti. It was Kunyathol Amma who educated Govindan Kuti. And Govindan Kuti, after later when he was educated, he became very, very active in politics. He became an active member of the Marxist party, and he, as a party worker, protested against the landlords. He, as a party worker, insisted on the implementation of land reforms. And later, many years later, when Govindan Kuti is a party leader, he could be a minister sometimes, he could be, of course, the highest, he could be holding the highest position in a political party, he could be the party leader. And when he is in a powerful position, one day a very old lady comes to his office, and we understand that this is Kunyathol Amma, who gave him food, who gave him education, who made him what he was. And he feels sorry that he was thankless, he was not grateful. And his heart is, when he saw this old lady and her grandson, 7-year-old boy, stand in front of him, he feels so sad, and he just utters, Govindan Kuti is a sinner, because number one, he did not remember, or rather he did not go to Kunyathol Amma. He didn't go and see her what her condition was. He didn't help her. And he feels so sad, and he says he's a sinner. Alright, now we come to the next question. Justify the title of the story, Christian Heritage. So the story, Christian Heritage of Vaikam Muhammad Bashir is about, in fact, it is titled Christian Heritage, and it is about Vaikam Muhammad Bashir's experience of being experience, of course, meeting one of his readers, right? And we know that in this story, Vaikam Muhammad Bashir is visited by his a person called, a reader called Kochu Tommy. Okay, and he comes there. We know that he is, of course, a peasant from Kottayam, and of course later he just came to, of course, Malabar. Thereafter he was in hospital for some time. After his discharge, he comes to the house of Vaikam Muhammad Bashir, and he has to stay. They speak very friendly, and Vaikam Muhammad Bashir is very happy in the company of Kochu Tommy, and they spend the entire day talking. It's lunchtime, it's evening, it's night, and okay, it's very late, and Kochu Tommy cannot just go back. And then after dinner, Waika Muhammad Bashir is asking his wife Fabi to give, of course, make arrangements for Kochutomi to rest, and he is given a mat, and he is given a pillow. Pillow is nothing but a book, and the book is titled Christian Heritage in India, and it is authored by Sir Sri John Ochenturit. And Kochutomi is sleeping, resting on this book, and we know this story is about a Muslim writer and a Christian reader, and the very plot or the incidents in the story, right, has a lot of significance, because Christianity is about Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ said, love your enemy as you love yourself, right? And like Muhammad Bashir, who is, of course, who believes in secularism, who believes in humanity, who believes in universal love, who always wants to uphold the principles of universal love and humanity, is so happy to have a Christian brother at his home, right? So the story is about what Jesus said. This story is about what Christianity is. So also it's about what Islam is, what religions are about, and so also it is about the very pillow. All right, and hence, because of all this reason, the very title of the story, Christian Heritage, is very, very meaningful and perfect. And this is one of the greatest short stories of the great writer of Malayalam, Waika Muhammad Bashir. Now we have the essay questions. Remember, section C, we have 4 essay questions. Please answer only 2, and you have to answer to 2 is a must, right? And essay question, you can have maybe 2 pages, 2.5 pages maximum. All right, maximum 250 words, right? That is 2 pages and a half. Okay, so the first question is rain at night. All right, section C, answer any 2 questions, each carries 10 marks. 24th question, rain at night as a lyrical elegy, rain at night. Okay, so in this, when you answer essay question, remember, you should have an introduction about the author. Rain at Night is about, it is written by Sugata Kumari. So you write in detail about Sugata Kumari as a poet. She is, of course, an activist, and she has won a lot of awards, and just mention some of the awards like Madhubhumi Literary Award, Eruthachan Award, and say that she is, of course, the founder of Abhaya, a home for the destitute and unwedded mothers, and say that she is also an environmentalist, and that all this in your introduction. And after that, you can say that Rain at Night is a lyrical elegy. And now you have to elaborate what is a lyric. Okay, a lyric is a very personal poem which is very much musical, and this poem, Rain at Night, is very musical. It's very much personal. It can be sung, and it has the very music of the rain. Okay, and it is about the personal. Lyrical poems are about personal experiences, right? So this poem is about the experience of a middle-aged lady. Of course, Sudha Kumari herself, right? Could be any middle-aged lady in our country, or rather our Kerala, right? Okay, so the very personal problems, emotions, the very lows, the feeling of alienation, the feeling of left alone, the feeling of being sick, the feeling of being, of course, in a painful condition. All right, she is in a hospital. So all middle ages, in the case of women, especially, women, right? they have a lot of physical problems, emotional problems. Then maybe their kids, their children are grown up. Children should be in teenagers. They should be away from them. And in the teenagers, the children may not be showing very much affection to the mothers, right? And even the husbands of these middle-aged women would not be very, very romantic, right? During the early days of marriage, they could be very romantic, right? But when one or two kids are born, and as they maybe when they are again, the kids are again grown up adults, the husband could be very busy with, of course, his work. He could be away. All right. So all the very emotion, the very loneliness, the suffering, the pain of the very narrator, that is Sugata Kumari, the poet, is just transferred to of course, Rain at Night. It is, and again, elegy, lyrical elegy. What's an elegy? Elegy is a poem which is lamenting normally the death of somebody. So a lamentation. Elegy is a lamentation poem. Here the poet is lamenting the loss of her youthful days, her joyous days, her friends, maybe her relatives. She is very lonely. She lost her. She feels like dead, emotionally, physically, and maybe even when it comes to, of course, her condition in the family, she is dead because she hasn't anyone. She is in the hospital. It is just a wounded corpse-like body, and because of all. And now, of course, you have to come to the text, right? Where in the text, of course, you see that Rain at Night, like some young mad woman for nothing, weeping, laughing, whimpering, muttering, right? So the night rain, or Rain at Night, is compared to a mad woman. A mad woman is, she is emotionally, mentally, psychologically having a lot of problem. Okay, so whoever is not physically, emotionally, mentally fit can be poetically dead. So because of all this reason, you can say that this is a wonderful lyrical elegy. And you can come to the text and say that in stanza 1, the poetess calls or compares Rain at Night to a young mad woman, and the night rain is just weeping, laughing, and whimpering like a mad woman. And this is exactly what happened in a lyrical elegy. The pain, the emotion, the very loneliness. All right, and we understand that she is in the hospital, right? And second stanza, we listen to the groaning and the sharp cries, etc., in the hospital, right? And of course, we have a line like, somebody said, a diseased part can be cut and removed. That is, of course, this line is making the poem all the more elegiac. A diseased part can be cut and removed, but what can be done to the poor heart deeply diseased? Okay, then later, next stanza, of course, Rain at Night, witness to my love, okay, who lull me to sleep, giving me joy more than the moonlight did. So the very memories of the poet when she was of course a lover, or she used to be in the company of her lover, or other, maybe after her marriage, right? So all this, right? And we can say that at last the poet says that she is like the rain at night. How do I know all this, my friend? I too am like you, rain at night. Okay, so because of all this reason, we can say that Rain at Night is a lyrical elegy. Now we come to the next two questions. Describe how Harris delineates the 50 years of Malayalam cinema. It's a very important essay. Say in your introduction about V.C. Harris, significance of V.C. Harris, and say that he was a teacher, thinker, critic, and theatre personality and translator, and say that this very essay was just written to of course the very show the progress of Malayalam cinema in 50 years. He is just V.C. Harris is tracing the history of 50 years of Malayalam cinema from 1954, the very year of Nilakuyil, to 2003, the very year of the film Padam Onnu Oru Vilapam. And in between, he speaks to us about the very feature of films at different stages, especially 1940s and 1950s. The films like Nilakuyil, Chemmin, okay, all these films just represent, show or delineate caste inequality. Nilakuyil, say for example, is about, or films in 1940s and 50s are about the caste inequality, class consciousness, nationalism and progress. And you can write about Nilakuyil, you can write about Chemmin, and say that Chemmin is about the fishing community in Kerala. You just write about the plot of the film. And thereafter we have the films of 1970s, right? 1970s we have a change with Adur Gopalakrishnan and Aravindan and John Abraham. Mention the films of Adur Gopalakrishnan, especially Swayamvaram. Then mention 1978 Tambu of G. Aravindan. Also mention the very film Nirmalyam of M.T. Vasudevan Nair, and M.T. Vasudevan Nair's significance. Especially he directed films during 1970s, 80s, 90s. Okay, and thereafter you can mention the name of John Abraham, who contributed to Malayalam film industry through Amma Ariyan of 1986. Later we have the first decade of 20th century, 1910, right? And in the 20th century, especially in the early decade of 20th century, we have issues like social issues, political issues, and liberalization, privatization, globalization, all that we have there in the films of the period. And mention the very names of filmmakers like later Shaji and Karun. Then of course we have T.V. Chandran. Then mention the name of P.N. Menon. Okay, then also mention the contribution of the significance of the left parties in, of course, changing the very perspective of the filmmakers, right? So the very gist of all this chapter would be answer to this question, Harris history of 50 years of Malayalam cinema. Now we come to the next question. Edasheri's poem The Kuttipuram Bridge is a critique of mindless urbanization. Explain. Okay, so say that write about the significance of Edasheri Govindan Nair. Then just mention the very fact that this is, of course, a poem having a lot of ecological significance. Say, mention the fact that this is the first eco-critical poem in Malayalam. That is a very important point. And you can also mention that the poet is sad about, of course, the very destruction that is happening to the river, that is Bharatapura, Nila River. And you can say that the poet is expressing his anxiety and uncertainty in the process of modernization and mechanization, and also say that because of the very construction of the bridge, the beauty of the river, the beauty of the surrounding is just devastated. Okay, so one side the bridge is symbolizing the urbanization happening in Kerala, and the poet is of course proud of standing on the very Kuttipuram bridge. But the other side, he is so sad and unhappy that the beauty of the village is destroyed. He is sad that he is not going to see any of the small creatures in the river, in the waters of the river, and on the shore of the river. And he nostalgically remembers those wonderful days of his childhood. Okay, and later, of course, mention the very textual points in each of the stanzas. We have, of course, some 6 stanzas, and end of the poem, the poet is so sad that the river is soon becoming a drainage. The river is soon becoming a drainage, and a very toxic, stinking smell is spreading around from Perar. You can quote maybe the last lines. Man is full of play, tears and laughter. If he turns into a machine, O mother Perar, would you also turn into grieving, reeking rain? Alright, now we come to the next question, the last question, essay question. Evaluate Malabar Manual as a historical narrative. Okay, mention in introduction about William Logan, thereafter significance of Malabar Manual. So say that William Logan was the Scottish officer of Madras Civil Service during the British government, and he was appointed as collector of Malabar. Later he became the magistrate and judge in, of course, the in the Madras region, and he was, of course, very, very proficient and efficient in a lot of Indian languages, especially Malayalam, Tamil and Telung, and he was very, very hardworking. He traveled far and wide, and he struggled a lot to make the historical narrative Malabar Manual. It was in fact published in 1887, and it is a collection of information and assumption obtained from the travels and studies of William Logan. It is about the geography of Malabar. It's about the mountains, rivers, climate, geography, natural resources, natural phenomena, people, flora and fauna, economy, ethnography, caste, religion, language, literature, education, etc. And say that the very specific chapter included in the text readings on Kerala is about the arrival of Portuguese navigator Vasco da Gama and his team. Say that they started on 25th March 1497. They started in, of course, 3 small vessels called the San Rafael, San Gabriel, San Miguel, and they travel through the ocean. They had a lot of difficulty. At last they reached the city of Calicut, Mount Delili, and the meeting between Vasco da Gama and Samorin. So say that it was very difficult to meet the Samorin and make friendship with him, because the Mohammedans, the Moors from the Persian countries, they had a supremacy, a monopoly in the area. They control the trade with European countries, and they were jealous of Portuguese people, and they tried their best to prevent Vasco da Gama meeting Zamorin, but later of course they meet, right? And at last, just mention the very description of the appearance of Zamorin, how Vasco da Gama goes to the palace of Zamorin, the very palace, description of the palace, description of Zamorin, description of the servants of Zamorin, then description of Vasco da Gama and his team, exchange of hostages, difficulty, and at last, of course, permission is granted to construct a factory on the shore, and later, of course, slowly, Vasco da Gama and his team, the Portuguese people, are having more friendship, and their trade relationship with, of course, Zamorin just flourished day by day. And this Malabar Manual is a historical narrative. It's a historical narrative because one side, it is about the history of Kerala. It's about how Kerala or India was a foreign colony. And it reads like, of course, William Logan's narrative style is so attractive, like the reader feels that he is reading, of course, maybe a novel. Every description, the description of people, description of the scenery, description of the very locations, the locality, the very setting is, of course, so vivid and graphic that Malabar Manual can be, because everything, right, whatever William Logan writes about the people, the very description is brick by brick. Like he describes everything, how Zamorin is dressed, the jewels, his head, how his face is, his color is, his dressing is. So everything is so vivid and graphic, like in a film or in a painting, that Malabar Manual can be just called a historical narrative. It's about the history of India, it's about the history of Kerala, and everything has been just narrated very, very exquisitely. Okay, with that we come to the end of this discussion of the question paper. I hope you found it useful. So I request each of you once again, please answer all the questions in section A, all the 15 questions, and answer all the questions in section B, and 2 questions in section C. അപ്പോൾ എല്ലാവരും ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞതുപോലെ സെക്ഷൻ എയിൽ നിന്നും എല്ലാ ചോദ്യത്തിനും ഉത്തരം എഴുതുക. അത് ശ്രദ്ധിക്കുക, 2-3 സെൻറ്റൻസുകൾ മാത്രം, അതിനപ്പുറം എഴുതരുത്, സമയം പോകും, സമയം നോക്കുക. പക്ഷേ എല്ലാം എഴുതുക, 15 എഴുതുക സെക്ഷൻ എയിലെ. സെക്ഷൻ ബിയിലെ ഇത് പറഞ്ഞതുപോലെ തന്നെ നിങ്ങൾ ഏത് ചാപ്റ്ററാണ് ആരാണ് എഴുതിയതെന്ന് പറയുക. അത്തരത്തിലുള്ള കുഞ്ഞ് ഇൻട്രഡക്ഷൻ മതി. പിന്നെ നിങ്ങൾ ഈ ചോദ്യത്തിൻ്റെ ഉത്തരത്തിലേക്ക് വരിക. ഒരു 3/4 പേജ്, 75-80 വാക്കുകൾ, അതിനപ്പുറത്തേക്ക് ഒട്ടും പോകണ്ട. ഒരു പേജിൽ കൂടുതൽ ഒരിക്കലും എഴുതരുത്, സമയം കിട്ടില്ല. പക്ഷേ എല്ലാം എഴുതണം. 16 മുതൽ 23 വരെയുള്ള എല്ലാം എഴുതണം. ഓർക്കുക, 35 മാർക്ക് നിങ്ങൾക്ക് കിട്ടാനുള്ളതാണ്. നല്ല ഇംഗ്ലീഷിൽ സ്പെല്ലിംഗ് മിസ്റ്റേക്കും ഗ്രാമർ മിസ്റ്റേക്കും ഒന്നും ഇല്ലാതെ പോയിൻ്റ് എഴുതി കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ തീർച്ചയായിട്ടും നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ഈ 35 മാർക്ക് ഇവിടെ കിട്ടാം. ഓക്കെ, അപ്പോൾ എല്ലാം എഴുതുക. പിന്നെ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് എസ്സേ ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ 4 ഉണ്ട്, അതിൽ 2 എഴുതുക. 2 മാത്രം എഴുതിയാൽ മതി, കൂടുതൽ എഴുതിയിട്ട് ഒരു കാര്യവുമില്ല. 2 എഴുതുക, അത് വൃത്തിയായിട്ട് എഴുതുക. ഇൻട്രൊഡക്ഷൻ വേണം, ഓഥറിനെ കുറിച്ച് വേണം, ആ ഒരു ടെക്സ്റ്റിൻ്റെ പ്രത്യേകത എന്താണ്, അതിൻ്റെ സിഗ്നിഫിക്കൻസ് എന്താണെന്ന് എഴുതുക. ടെക്സ്റ്റിനകത്ത് പറഞ്ഞിരിക്കുന്ന കാര്യങ്ങൾ ഓരോന്നും കൃത്യമായിട്ട് എഴുതുക. 2 പേജ്, 200-250 വാക്കുകളിൽ എഴുതുക മാക്സിമം. I wish you all the best. Do well. Write neatly. This is very important. Write neatly. Please keep 1 inch margin. Write neatly and manage time. 2.5 hours. Try to finish in maybe 2 hours or 2:15 hours. Okay. God bless you. Thank you so much for listening. And last, if you find it useful, please like the channel, like this lecture, share it with your friends who are in colleges,